start with their special teams. Aubrey and Turpin, they're point generators. Aubrey, 66. Anytime you get to midfield, it's a chance for points for those guys. So special teams will be critical.
This is Big Blue Blitz with your host, Joe Mauceri.
Brian Daboll, a soothsayer, as the Cowboys beat the Giants in overtime on the leg of Brandon Aubrey. Hello and welcome to Big Blue Blitz Week 2. I am Joe Mauceri, and we are going to break it all down. The Giants lose a shootout to the Cowboys. And down there covering it all was Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post. He joins us fresh off his flight. Ryan, at least you got to watch some entertaining football this week. What was it like down there at Jerry's World?
Joe, this is what I told you before this season, I think. I told you the Giants were not going to be a very good team, but they were going to be an entertaining team, and I thought they'd lose a lot of close games. I thought they'd be a much improved team. I didn't see any of that week 1. I was like, did I even know what I was watching in the preseason? This is what I thought. Not that I thought they'd lose on 66-yard field goals, but I probably would have picked that if you asked me if I could have. But yeah, that's what I thought. This is what I thought the Giants were going to be: more entertaining, more competitive, and still lose.
Well, then they did just that for you this week. But when you talk about entertaining, if you love villains, it seemed like the Giants had a villain to pick on very early in this one, with James Hudson getting 4 penalties on one drive, and that pretty much set the tone. It was something that hadn't happened, I think, in 100 years of football, they said during the broadcast there. But 4 penalties, and in 5 plays, add a sack to that as well. It was part of a ridiculous day for the Giants where they had 14 accepted penalties for 160 yards. And 3 of them, I think they had on one play that didn't even count.
4 on one drive by one player, 3 on one play on the defense that didn't even count because there was an offsetting penalty on the Cowboys. If I'm the Cowboys, I want to know how 1 offensive penalty offsets 3 defensive penalties. Probably haven't had that question come up many times. 14 accepted penalty, Joes, 21 flags. 7 were either declined or offset. 21 flags against the Giants.
And we're talking about discipline. We're talking about trying to get this team together here. You look at the situation. I got to talk about Hudson here because this was absolutely ridiculous. You saw Brian Daboll saying, take him out. When you were watching that, were you surprised that he was still in there on the drive? And what was it like on the sidelines? Obviously, we got glimpses of it.
So, yeah, a couple things there, Joe. One, I'm not surprised that James Hudson is a penalty machine because all offseason he was really feisty. And that's one of the reasons when you asked why the Giants prioritized this guy in free agency, it was part of this. His chippy, edgy demeanor. They wanted that. Andrew Thomas, great player. He's not really like that. John Michael Schmitz struggles. He's not really like that. They don't have a lot of like nasty in their offensive line. He's like that. But it was a cute story in the preseason when he had edge or he was fighting Brian Burns in practice. When you can get a penalty flag and kill your team, it's not such a cute story. So not surprised that this was him. Not surprised he stayed out there for the full drive because you rarely see an offensive lineman pulled mid-drive. It kind of disrupts everything. Certainly, obviously, came out to start the second drive and never went back. And on the sidelines, he was enraged. I mean, the television camera showed it. He was enraged. I don't know if he was enraged. We didn't get a chance to talk to him post-game. So I don't know if he was enraged to be pulled or I don't know if he was enraged at what the Cowboys were doing to him or at himself. But he obviously couldn't be consoled by offensive line coach Carmen Brasillo. It took Russell Wilson, Malik Neighbors, and a gaggle of teammates and offensive coordinator Mike Kafka to eventually calm him down. And then you saw Jameis Winston in his ear on the sideline after things chilled out.
All right, we'll move on from this in just a second, but I have to point out, I thought the right hook was very impressive on the heels of the Canelo Crawford fight on Saturday. It's a new blocking technique. It's not one I've seen before. I don't know if they
Yeah,
teach
because it's
that.
illegal.
Right.
That's
Yeah, he gets the credit for the knockdown, though. It wasn't a slip for sure. The other thing on this, good news for the Giants, is Marcus Bowe came in and you really never heard his name. And when you don't hear an offensive lineman's name, that's usually a good thing. The rookie performed well in this one. So he could be seeing some more opportunities and should be seeing some more opportunities as we move forward. All right, before we get to the bad, let's start with the good. Russell Wilson looked like vintage Russell Wilson in this one. The moonball was in full effect. Obviously, that connection with Malik Neighbors was what Giants fans had hoped for when these two were coming together in the offseason. But what did you think of Russ and his ability to exploit that Cowboys secondary here?
Yeah, no, I thought exactly what you just said. I thought that's why they signed him. That's why you could think maybe this could work. Like Malik Neighbors is a big play guy. Darius Slayton is a big play guy. Wanda Robinson has always insisted he could be, and they never showed it. And he hit some moon balls. Like this is what Russell Wilson does. You know, Brian Daboll wants to be aggressive. Part of the reason him and Daniel Jones didn't get along is because Daniel Jones didn't pull the trigger downfield enough. So I thought for sure that that was the tease of like that. That's why they thought this union could work. Is Russell throwing it deep to some fast receivers, making some big plays, chunk plays, explosive plays that help you win the game that have been missing from the Giants for so long. It was clear like this is why it could be. And then they went to the well one too many times, and the moon ball got intercepted in overtime.
There was a lot of criticism of Wilson after week one. Here's what he had to say post game about all those critics and how he pays attention to it.
Somebody once told me the greater you're great, the more they're going to hate. The greater you're great, the more they're going to hate. And that's something I never forget. My dad was on his deathbed. I was playing college football. I had a pastor in North Carolina at NC State tell me that one day. And I was going through a lot of tough stuff. You know, my dad on his deathbed. And I was playing well, and I was going this and that, and everything was going at some of the highest moments, but also some of the toughest moments personally. I'll never forget he told me that. The greater you're great, the more they're going to hate. And so for me, I embrace the noise. I don't run from it.
So that's actually, I think, some encouraging words. You know, he's always positive. Russell Wilson always keeps it positive. I thought it was interesting. Malik Neighbors, after the game, too, said that he thinks Russell Wilson is even capable of more than he showed in this game against Dallas. But I got to ask, we know that Deron Bland was out for the Cowboys. How much are you giving Wilson and this offensive scheme credit, and how much goes on the Cowboys secondary for not being able to cover these wide receivers out there?
Yeah, I'm going to put it like 2/3 on the Cowboys and 1/3 credit for the Giants because, and I'm going to write about this in the post tomorrow, is like, I've seen this before. Drew Lock had like the greatest game in Giants history last year with Brian Daboll calling the plays. And then, you know, there was no carryover from that. They didn't even want to sign Drew Lock. And like Daniel Jones had a game against the Cardinals. I think it was his first 300-yard game, last 300-yard game until yesterday with the Colts, where he had like 4 touchdown passes in the second half, week 2 a couple years ago. And then there was no carryover from that. So like, do I think Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka are capable of drawing up excellent single game plans like yesterday where they identify a weakness and take advantage of it? Absolutely. Do I think there's a consistent identity to this offense that carries over from week to week? Well, that hasn't been in 4 years under these guys.
Yep.
Maybe Russell Wilson changes that, but I'm gonna need to see it before I give them more than 50% of the credit.
It doesn't get easier next week, too, as you have to face an 0-2 Chiefs team who's coming off a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that defense still has looked good despite some struggles for the Kansas City offense. All right, let's talk about Malik Neighbors because he made some ridiculous catches in this game. That first touchdown pass, the defender had his arm in there trying to knock the ball away. He's jumping in the air, turning around. The touchdown pass where he holds off the defender, gets his eyes covered, and blindfolded, seemingly still makes the catch. What'd you make of Malik in this one? He also did have that key drop, though, late in this game, which could have put it away for the Giants.
A couple of things. You're going to have to live with that. I think you're, at least early in his career, that's not going to go away. This is who Malik Neighbors is going to be. Some boom, some drops. you happily live with the drops for the boom. I think Jamar Chase had a drop problem early in his career. No one talks about that when he gets 1,600 yards a season and wins Offensive Player of the Years. Malik Neighbors has a chance to be one of the 3 best receivers in the NFL. You saw yesterday why. That was what was all over his college tape at LSU. In-flight body adjustments, tracking the ball deep. I mean, just sensational levels of playmaking, some concentration drops, but the good heavily outweighs the bad. That's why he's the best playmaker they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
So, and don't sleep on Wan'Dale Robinson, Joe. Like if he had a monster game, that 4th down touchdown, 30 yards sliding, that was the best I've ever seen Wan'Dale play in a totally different role. If he's even 3/4 of that going forward, they could have a dynamic duo that no one really thought existed.
8 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown for Wan'Dale in this one to go along with 9 catches, 167, and 2 touchdowns for Malik Neighbors. All right, we have to take a little break here, but when we come back, we're going to talk about another coordinator for the Giants. Last week, we were talking about Mike Kafka and his unit. When we come back, we're going to talk about Shane Bowen's defense. Stay with us. This is the Big Blue Blitz, and we will be right back.
Welcome back to Big Blue Blitz.
Welcome back to the show as the Giants drop a shootout in Dallas, 40-37, the final score down in Big D. With us this and every week, NFL reporter for the New York Post, Ryan Dunleavy, who was down in Dallas this week. And Ryan, you look at it, and last week we were talking about Mike Kafka and the Giants offense. This week, Shane Bowen's defense couldn't get the job done here. You give up 40 points. You give up those 2 big plays, I guess, at the end of regulation to set up the Aubrey field goal and then in overtime. What did you think about the approach from Bowen's defense here down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really easy, Joe, to criticize Shane Bowen for the play call. And to a degree, Brian Daboll said he would like to see tighter coverage. I know that's how fans feel. That's probably the right way to go. Tighter coverage, especially on the Jake Ferguson pass over the middle to get the Cowboys into Aubrey's field goal range. I would just like to see a player step up, right? Like Dexter Lawrence is one of the highest paid defensive tackles. Bobby Okereke's a captain, a middle linebacker who's made big plays a couple years ago. They just brought in Jackson, Abdul Carter, Abdul Carter, Debo, Javon Holland. Like, can one of these guys just make a game-changing play? Kayvon Thibodeau, the ball's on the ground. The ball almost ends up in Dexter Lawrence's hands on a pick. Can one of these star players just, like, make a game-changing play, and then you take it's easy to blame the coaches, but the players win games. Was Bowen's scheme aggressive enough at the end? Probably not. But Giants have enough players now. This isn't last year or 2 years ago where you're like, how can you expect these guys to make a play? They have guys who are bona fide playmakers. Somebody make a play and seal the game.
Well, and you know what? If you're going to make the plays, too, you have to take advantage of it. Brian Burns had a very good game in here. Phillips had a great game. They come through with the turnover, and then they can't capitalize on it, right, on the offensive side of the ball. So we hear it's a cliche, complimentary football all the time. But if your defense is going to go take away the ball, then you got to go turn it into points. If your offense is going to put up 37 points in a game, then your defense has to go out there and make a key stop in that situation. So, yeah, tighter coverage, I think, is a key thing. But when you look at the touchdowns and the success that this offense had overall, they still struggled in the red zone here. Was there any talk about their inability to score when they got close? Because we know a lot of times teams can move the ball between the 20s. We hear it all the time, and then that field shrinks when you get into the red zone. Were the Giants talking about their inability to punch it in once they got close?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a topic. They keep saying, like every possession's different and, they're trying to be aggressive and, a lot of lip service to it, but there's no sugarcoating the fact that they have, 1 touchdown on 7 red zone trips so far this season. Brian Daboll doesn't kick a lot of field goals in the low red zone, like the 5-yard line and below. He believes in, getting the 7 points. That certainly hurt them yesterday. They could have kicked a field goal and maybe the score is different at the end of the game. They left some points on the scoreboard there. I think you're going to see Jaxson Dart a lot more, Joe, in and around the red zone. Let's call it the 25 and below, because of the added element he brings with his legs and his quick decision-making passes. I think that could be adjustment the Giants make to try to get a little bit more effective in the red zone, because you can't throw moon balls in the red zone.
Yeah, that's for sure. We did see the debut of Jaxson Dart in the regular season here. 3 plays, 2 handoffs, and 1 attempted run where the turf monster got him, as they said in the New York Post. By the way, let me give a shout out to the Post here. Dark Side of the Moon Ball was a great back page. Really appreciated that, because of obviously the good side being the touchdowns he threw, the bad side being that interception. But back to Jaxson Dart here. The turf monster got him in this one. I didn't see enough of that play and the replays. If he doesn't get caught by the turf and trip up, is he open there? Is it a good, well-designed play? He's going to get some yards?
He's got to make a guy miss. But, he can do that. A lot of quarterbacks can do that nowadays. He's got to make a guy miss. It's probably one-on-one if the turf monster doesn't get him. And if he makes the guy miss, he's got a lot of room to the outside. So, yeah, I think that's one he would like to have back. But this Cam Scatterable one on the first play, obviously, is a 24-yard gain, because the Cowboys are thinking he's going to keep it. Why else is he in the game?
Right.
So that's certainly an added element. And eventually, I think if he got a 4th or a 5th snap, I think he would have thrown a quick pass too. And that's what RPO is. That's what he's good at running. So I think that will certainly continue. I think the Chiefs should expect to see a good amount of that if the Giants get inside the 25.
All right, you mentioned Cam, and obviously I think he already has become a folk hero for Giants fans. He won an Angry Runs award in week 1. Those 2 runs, and he got them down in the red zone where the Giants have been struggling. The guy's a battering ram there. There was some talk coming out of this one, and you said Brian Daboll addressed it earlier today about the Giants running backs. What's the situation in the backfield? Because we know Tyrone Tracy, there was a lot of high hopes for him coming into the season as well.
There was some conspiracy theory, I think, among the Giants fans, and I kind of bought into it too, that maybe Tyrone Tracy's reduced role yesterday had something to do with his comments during the week about critical of the play calling and not running the ball enough. Daboll said no. There seems like I'm going to believe him on this one, because they used Tyrone Tracy as a kick returner yesterday, which is a new role for him. And so he didn't start the game, but he had a run down 60 yards or whatever on the opening kickoff by Gunner, which of course was called back by one of the 14 penalties.
Yep.
So they wanted to give him a blow. They started Singletary. I think Tracy got like the 3rd carry. It's not like or the 3rd touch. It's not like he sat out the whole first quarter or the whole first half. So I don't think it was disciplinary. I think the fantasy football owners' ears perk up here. I think it might really be more of a game-to-game timeshare rotation, who has the hot hand or who matches up better against the defensive game plan between Tracy and Scatterbo. I don't know that it's always going to be the same lead back, and I don't think it's always going to be 50-50.
Yeah, and you look at where Cam got the carries down in the red zone too. That's something, if you're a fantasy football owner, you might want to be paying attention to. He's tough to see behind those offensive linemen. No slight on his height here, but when you're standing behind those 6'4", 6'5" linemen, and he's about what 5'8", 5'9". I don't know what he's officially listed at,
Generous.
but I know, right? So he reminds me a little bit of Maurice Jones-Drew down there. So you mentioned Tyrone Tracy returning kicks. I thought it was interesting. The Giants made an acquisition from the Jets and picking up Xavier Gipson. And when we talk about kick returns, that was Gibson's main role over there with the Jets. Do you think he becomes a part of this Giants special teams moving forward?
Yeah, they liked him enough to pick him up. I don't know if you can roster 2 guys who are special teamers only. Like, that's really hard to do in your receiver rotation. And like, Gunner's pretty much just a returner, and Xavier Gipson is pretty much just a returner. It'd be really hard to have both those guys active on game day. Maybe Gipson is just insurance if Gunner gets hurt, or maybe they try to, now that they have him, try to release him and get him back on their own practice squad. It'd be really hard, I think, to have 2 active returners only on game day, but I think that's more of a long-term play to look into Gipson and what he's all about than it is to activate him immediately to have him next to Gunner as the 2 kick returners. But guess it's possible. We'll see.
All right. Next up, as I said earlier, for the Giants is the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked a lot about the schedule coming into the season, right? The Giants trying to avoid that 0-4 start when you look at the gauntlet before they get to the Saints in week 5. What do you think the Chiefs are, how are they going to match up? We know Xavier Worthy had obviously been injured. Are they catching the Chiefs at a good time here?
ways to look at that, right? You could say like, well, the Chiefs have never looked more vulnerable, right? But their 2 losses are to like the Chargers, who are excellent, and the Eagles, who are the defending Super Bowl champ. It's not like we just saw the Chargers lose. No, it's not like we just saw the Chiefs lose to the Raiders or like the Titans or somebody who's in the Giants punching class, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I guess they've never been more vulnerable. I guess it's better to catch them at this time than it is, when they're on an 11-game winning streak or at their absolute peak. But I also look at it like they ain't sleeping on the Giants. They're 0-2 and desperate and fighting for their, if not their playoff lives, their seeding lives, because 3 losses or something, and now you're talking about you're not catching the Ravens or the Bills for playoff seeding.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I guess you could tell me that they're catching them at a vulnerable time, but I also wouldn't want to have the Chiefs' full attention if I'm the Giants too, because they might a primetime window against a not very good team. The Chiefs could use this as a statement game, like, oh, here's a 40 spot for anyone who thought we were who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. That game circled on the Chiefs calendar as well. You look at this last one here before we get out of here. We were talking about when we're going to see Jaxson Dart make his start. And last week, I think you said that clock kept moving up. How long did that clock get extended based on Russell Wilson's performance in your eyes after this week?
What did I say last week? I said maybe week 4. I'm
Yeah.
going to say maybe week 5. I mean, if the Giants are 0-4, I don't know. I guess I would say I don't know how they could be 0-4 with Russell Wilson playing well, but like Russell Wilson played great yesterday and they lost. So I guess if he keeps playing like that, it'll keep pushing him back, but that's unrealistic. That was the second best passing yard game of his career. I think if they lose these 2 home games, it's hard to imagine that 0-4 Giants are going to trot out a 37-year-old quarterback against the Saints, but I guess it's possible. I think how the fans react to these 2 games of Russell Wilson could be very telling.
All right, we'll see. At least maybe we'll hold off the planes flying over MetLife Stadium this season, if nothing else. Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post. Make sure you check out his work. And, of course, follow him on Twitter. He's a really good follow on Twitter. He's got some funny lines in there. Makes me laugh from time to time. Always appreciate you, bud. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Big Blue Blitz. Make sure to tune in each week on Pix 11 Plus for the latest on the Giants and the regular season saga. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.